This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have as our guest a national celebrity and our senior United States Senator, Tommy Tuberville. Coach has been out running around the state doing farm programs and everything, and he took time to be with us. He was on our show when he ran last time, and he won overwhelmingly as a Republican for the United States Senate, and he's been there 2.5 years, 2 years and 8 months, to tell you the truth. Time flies by, doesn't it, Coach?
It does, Steve. I'll tell you, seemed like yesterday I was in here campaigning.
You know, I was talking to Emery Cox, who you got with you today, about you being on the show, and you got a similarity. You're under the vein of following our senior senators, Lister Hill and John Sportman. I think you're in the seat that Sportman and then Heflin was in, if I'm not wrong, and that you're in the old Heflin seat, and you have a similarity in that everybody called him judge in the Senate. Both parties, they loved him, and you've gotten the same popularity among your colleagues. They love to call you Coach.
Everybody calls me Coach Steve. You know, and it's been pretty popular. You know, to their friends and on the floor and of course Schumer's called me a lot of things the last month. But that's all right. I mean, it's the way it goes. But I was proud to be a coach. I think that's one of the most important jobs that we have in this country.
Well, it gives a unique. It's good to have people, not just lawyers or former judges, which most of them are in the Senate, a unique thing. There are a lot of successful business people in there that have done well successfully. You've been successful business-wise, but through the coaching business, but there are a lot of real successful people in the Senate. But I remember seeing you when I went up there with the farmers a year or so ago, and you seem to really be enjoying it.
Well,
I told people, I said, I saw Coach, he really seems to like it, because those of us around politics, we're kind of wondering, he's so used to being his own man and being, carefree and sort of semi-retired, and he gets up here as one of 100. How's he gonna like to be up here with all these, But you seem to have, it seems to agree with you.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's about team. We got Republicans versus Democrats. Hopefully, we're all Americans. At the end of the day, sometimes I question that, but. It's very similar to coaching, Steve. It's not about a lawyer or a business person or a coach. It's about communication. You got to be able to communicate, and people got to trust you. They got to get along with you, and if they got some kind of bill that they think you'd be good on, they'd come to you. And I'm the same way. If I've talked to other senators, and if I think this senator would help me on a bill with farming, I'd go to him. And so. It's all about communication. It's not rocket science. It's about believing in our country and our state. And I've done everything I possibly can to help the people of Alabama. I'm going to continue to do it.
Well, I was telling Emery and you prior to the show, and I can tell when people like what you're doing, because they'll stop me at a filling station. And I had a guy the other day here in Montgomery stop me and say, Flowers, I like what Tuberville's doing, because you're doing, we visited with George Wallace Jr., you and I did before he left, earlier today, and his daddy was very popular for not, people castigate him for being a racist and all that sort of thing, which was that era, but he really believed in standing up for Alabama, and I think you fit that same mold. Is you want to stand up for Alabamians. You know how important farming is, for example.
Yeah. You've
been touring the state with Rick Pate, the Agriculture Commissioner.
Yeah.
And y'all been talking about the Farm Bill. Let's move into that, if you would, because when I asked you when you were running, you realized, this is another thing I like about you too, is you're loyal to your friends. You don't change horses in the middle of the stream. The farmers were there for you when you first ran.
Yeah.
They were there for Katie Britt when she first ran. And it gave y'all both the impetus and the credibility to go on. That was a thing. And I remember asking you what committee you thought you wanted to be on, and you said you wanted to be on agriculture. And you got on agriculture, and y'all are writing the Farm Bill. Tell our viewers what all was going on. You've been touring the state about that.
Yeah, first of all, you got to remember, Steve, we hadn't had an elected official in the Senate on the Ag Committee in over 20 years.
Heflin was on there, I
Yeah,
think.
he was on there.
He was the last one.
And Luther went on there for a little while, but of course he was appointed. I'm talking about somebody that went on there and know they're going to be there 6 years. And of course I've traveled the state many times being a coach, and I've gone to farming, rural communities, and we're 60% rural in the state.
Still.
And, yeah, still. And I represent the farmers and, the electricians and the plumbers and truck drivers. I mean, that's what this is all about. This is not just representing people in the big cities and the lawyers and doctors, and of course I represent them too, but everybody needs representation. And farming, there's no doubt that farming is one of the most important things in our country. We have to not just feed the country, we feed the world. And what I've seen and been on the Ag Committee is give me the opportunity to see how important farming is, even more and more, and how our farmers are really kicked to the curb a lot. And we're going to fight for them. And as you said, I've been around the state this week, going to farmers, talking to farmers, and I took Commissioner Pate with me, and we had a great discussion. Emma Johnston, who is my ag liaison in my staff, and it was a listening tour. I wanted them to tell me, you got to remember that this is Farm Bill year. Every 5 years we do a Farm Bill. And I need to know their problems, what they think needs to be in the Farm Bill, what worked in the last Farm Bill, what didn't work. And we got problems. Of course, we got labor problems, we got supply chain problems. This administration wants to do away with fossil fuels. That's impossible, but they're trying to do it, and it's really putting the farmers back against the wall. You can't farm without fossil fuels, cheap fossil fuel. I saw yesterday, it's gone up 40 cents a gallon in the last week, and it's going to get worse, I'm afraid, and farmers are going to really, really suffer from that.
Coach, when you travel the entire state, there's a diversity in different parts of agriculture, like this poultry has gotten so big, but does the poultry farmer in Arab have the same interest that the peanut farmer in Dothan does? Is there different things you need to work on the bill? Well, they telling you different when you go to different parts of the state?
Well, it goes back to labor. Everybody's got labor problems.
So that's a big, that's universal.
Everybody wants a better reference price, meaning how much money they can get for their crops. Obviously, they want that, and and of course we represent row crops, catfish. We were in Bay Minette. We talked about oysters and seafood. They got problems in just the regulations. Regulations are killing our farmers, and we need to get out of their way and let them work. But as you said, poultry is, I think we're second in the country in poultry, and it's a hard job. It's a hard job, and that is labor consistency. You have to have consistent labor to get that done. But it's a tough time for the farmers. Prices are not as high, and of course the cost has gone up 28% since Joe Biden went into office. 28% for farmers. I mean, the bottom line is not very good. And Steve, if we don't watch it, we're going to lose our family farms. And when we lose that, and it goes to big corporations, that's more and more like socialism. We can't let that happen. We got to keep our family farms.
Well, you're representing Alabama well, because if I had to say what would be the best committees for a U.S. Senator to be on for Alabama, it'd be agriculture. And I could tell when you first ran, with your father being an Army veteran, how sincere you felt about Veterans Affairs, and you did something I don't think any senator's done. And your first year in the office, I don't know if you realize this or not, I had somebody come to me and say, do you know someone in Senator Tuberville's office? And I felt like with you having such an interest in veterans and being such a stalwart supporter of veterans, I called your office, and you have a full-time person that does nothing but help people get veterans. There was a guy in Birmingham that was not, he came to me, his family did, and says, Steve, we've been trying to get him on disability for the Iraq War or something, and your guy spent a year and got him his benefits and got him his back pay and got his child. The guy came to me crying.
Yeah.
I mean, his child went to college because of you, because your guy went the extra mile. No other senator had taken that interest and just let that guy's letters go unanswered. The guy had written for 10 years, been trying. He deserved his pay. What's that combat pay where they get stress-related stuff? What is that called?
What, PTSD?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He had PTSD, and then from that, and then But you got his money back for him.
Well,
10 years back as a child of college.
Here's the key to being a senator. It's like being a coach. You're only as good as the people that work for you. And so we went out and looked for people that had Alabama ties.
This guy was from Sand Mountain.
Yeah. And people working with Alabama ties, and then very good at their job that take pride in it. Now, veterans, Steve, we got veterans right now, and with these 20-year wars, we're going to have more and more veterans that we're going to have to take care of. This PTSD is a serious problem. We're losing 20 veterans a day to suicide across this country. 20 are committing suicide.
Because of that.
Because of that. Well, and other things too, but we got to make sure our VAs are good, better. I mean, we're a long way from being where we need to be. Now, we just passed a veterans bill for a lot of money because of these burn pits. I don't know if you've heard of them. Over in the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, they're out in these deserts, all these bases, and they dig these holes next to the base and they'd burn everything. And with these soldiers, whether they were in combat or not, whether they were working on machinery or secretaries or whatever they did in that base, they breathed that from that burn pit the whole time they were there. We are having lots of problems, you know, with lung problems and other diseases, and it's going to go on for a long time. We passed a huge bill to help on that. But that being said, going back to Caitlin Stoddard is the girl that just does a great job with the veterans. I'm proud to have her. Unfortunately, she's a Georgia graduate, but she knows a lot about Alabama, and she takes pride in it.
Coach, what about the other thing I was going to ask you about that, in relation to the Farm Bill and going into banking, what young Mr. Cox knows about, you were talking about, and there's some to do with marijuana and banking, and you're working on something in that regard. Explain to our viewers what that is now, and it's a real problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's been all over the country since we've started legalizing, whether it's medical or recreational marijuana. Statewide, it's still illegal federally. So because of that, you cannot put money in the bank. You can't use a credit card to buy medical marijuana or recreational in the states that it's legal. And so everything's done with cash. And so banks are not allowed to take that cash as a deposit. These companies are putting hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash in vaults underneath their businesses. I mean, I saw one in Colorado. It's amazing. Had $1 million in the building. Of course, they have to have security and all that. Well, there's an act that our bill we're trying to get pushed. It's called the Safe Banking Act, meaning that hey, we got to make it safe. If we're going to bring medical marijuana to this state, we don't need people running around with thousands and thousands of dollars of cash in these stores. It needs to be protected. So, Safe Banking Act says that we can use banks and deposit this money in the bank so it can be protected, and so that we don't have any theft or we don't have people getting hurt because of it. If we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see you working on that, which brings me to this point, backing up to the veterans thing a little bit, backtrack. I got to think about that. You know, in the Senate in Washington, and you've seen this firsthand, I don't think I've ever seen a time in history when this George Wallace Jr.'s daddy used to go around the country running for president saying there's not a dime's worth of difference in the Democratic and Republican Party. Well, he couldn't say that with a straight face now. And what I'm getting around to asking you, I bet it's hard to work with some of those Democratic senators. I mean, 'cause they think completely different than we do on everything.
Yeah, you got the far left. It's just absolutely they're not for any borders. You know,
right.
They don't want to prosecute anybody and people getting arrested. They're pushing all this CRT and this wokeism in our education system, which is really detrimental to our young people. There's a lot of things they believe in. They don't believe in the rule of law. They want to get away from the Constitution. And I tell people this, and of course we have Republicans and Democrats, and I'm a conservative Christian Republican. But at the end of the day, it's really not Republican or Democrat. It's American, you're a true American, or you're anti-American. That's the way I look at it up there. And you got people that don't believe in this country the way it is. Now they like living here, but they want to change the rules, the laws, and how we do things, and it's just, it just amazes me, because for 247 years, we've lived by this Constitution, Steve, and that's what saved us. We got a set of rules, the 10 Commandments, and the Constitution that we've gone by. Now, if we start breaking that, if we start going around it and bending it, that's like these holes I've got on these general and admirals. It's not as much about abortion, which it is to a point, but it's as much about the White House and the Pentagon saying, we're not going to go by the Constitution, we're going to make a different law, and we're not going to run through Congress. No, it don't work like that. I ran for 2 years and earned the right to represent the people of Alabama, and they get a voice in that. The Secretary of Defense and the President doesn't make that decision. They don't make laws, okay? We do that in Congress, and so that's one of the reasons I've got those holes.
Well, I guarantee you, you have seen and ascertained by visiting the state the last couple of weeks on this farm tour that you and Commissioner Pate have been around all over the state. I bet you've had every one of those people in those meetings say, Coach, Senator, I'm glad to see you standing up for Alabama principles.
Oh, all over state, at gas stations, in Walmart.
Yep.
It's amazing. And I was of course we work a lot of times. We don't have a lot of time off, but now August is a month we basically go in the state and go around, like I've been touring farms the last few days and talking to farmers, and then today I went to Maxwell Air Force Base and talked to their 1,500 officers that they have there. It's good to get back into the state everywhere I go, Steve. And I've kind of kind of wondering how the reaction was going to be when I got back home, because in D.C. now I get hit everywhere I go, restaurants.
But they love it here in Alabama.
Oh, they love it.
And what I like, and you said it on one of the shows I was watching, I don't represent y'all. I represent Alabama people.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not here to make you people at CNN happy.
Yeah.
That's not my job. I didn't get elected to come in and talk about all that liberal stuff y'all talk about.
Yeah, you think a plumber from Jasper worries about that?
No.
He wants somebody to represent him.
I know.
And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure they have a voice, and their voice goes through me. And I know how people in Alabama think, because remember what I did for 2 years? Now, of course, I've been around the state many times, but for 2 years I listened and talk to the people that elected me, and they sent me up there for a reason, and I'm going to stand up for it.
Well, and that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to stand up for Alabama principles. And that what you said, though, makes sense. It's deeper than just the abortion issue, which you're representing the vast majority of Alabamians on that issue, but it's the Constitution, and you're conservative, and you're not ashamed of it, and that's Alabamians are not.
Well, the SecDef told us about Thanksgiving last year, we're going to change this policy.
Who did now?
The Secretary of Defense.
Okay.
Lloyd Austin said we're going to change this policy, and he gave us a briefing. And after the briefing, I'm thinking, wait a minute now. In 1985, Joe Biden even voted to make this policy in the military that you could have an abortion only by rape, incest, or health of the mom. Yeah. Joe Biden himself and the Democrats voted that in. Now, 30 or 35 years later, they're going to say, no, we're going to change that, but we're going to do it with a memo. We're not going to send it through Congress. That's no. And I told the Secretary of Defense, if you do this in a letter, if you do this, I sent it to him before Christmas. I said, I'm going to hold all your admirals and generals. I don't think he believed me. I think he believes me now 6 months later.
It's been going on 6 months now.
It's been going on 6 months, and it's going to go another 6 months until I get, and I'll change it. And now again, going back to this, Steve, I can hold a group. They can do them one at a time, and I can't hold them. They can do them one at a time. So, but
take a lot of time, though.
But what they don't want to do is they want to do all 250 of them. And right now we're doing a deep dive into each one of them. I want to know what they believe.
Well, that's what I thought about when you just started doing that. I said, you're liable to have some pretty liberal or different kind of people. They trying to make generals. Yeah. You may not want to be generals.
Well,
maybe it's good they do it one at a time.
Think about this, Steve. In World War II, we had 7 4-star generals for 12 million American troops. Okay, today we have 2 million troops, and we got 44 4-stars. We're way overbalanced. Now, that's up to them, okay? But at the end of the day, they're not earning any brownie points from me trying to push me to a law on the American people, number one, and enforce me to just let these people go at one time, all 250 or 300, whatever it's built up to be.
Now let me ask you this question, and this, I ought to know this because I'm supposed to be about politics. And, what committee looks after the veterans, and is it Armed Services you're on?
No, Veteran Affairs. Now I'm on
Okay.
Veterans Affairs, and of course we take care. We do everything vets. I mean, we Secretary Madonna, who's is the Secretary of the VA, a good guy. I'm going to bring him here to Alabama. We're going to go to a couple of the VAs, but it's a pretty bipartisan group.
That's what I was getting around to ask you. Are the Democrats on that committee, do they really care about veterans? That may be one bipartisan committee you may be on.
Yeah.
Do you find the Democrats on that committee are pretty they really do care about veterans?
Yeah, I'm on two that are pretty bipartisan. One is the veterans, the other one's ag. Now,
Ag's pretty bipartisan.
Now that's, and I told the farmers this, hey, listen, ag is not a Republican Democrat.
No, it's not.
You know what it is? It's North versus South.
Is that what it is?
Well, because they have different crops.
California is different too, isn't
Yeah, they have different crops.
Uh-huh.
And so they want more for the corn. They want more for cherries. They don't have cotton up there. They don't have soybeans. They don't have the peanuts that we have. So in the farm bill, it's got to be different. And so we all fighting for the row crops we have or the catfish that we have, nobody else has. Mississippi has some. And the specialty crops like pecans, and the things that go along with the very special crops. I mean, you look out for everybody. But again, when I went to the Senate, John Bozeman from Arkansas, Senator Bozeman, he's a ranking member.
He spoke to that Alpha meeting we were at in Washington.
Exactly. And he told me I need.
He's a Republican though.
Oh yeah, he's a Republican. He said I need you on there. He says we're outnumbered north south. It ain't Republican Democrat. We got more Southerners voting for the type of crops and livestock.
And you got to trade off really kind of a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, we want to take care of everybody.
Yeah.
But we want to get we don't want to get 75-25. You know, we want to. But here's the thing, we have got to work for workforce and get the visa system right for our farmers because they got to have help. We can't get anybody to work anymore, Steve.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
Since COVID, people sitting home watching television, taking a check, and we got to stop that because we don't. The country's not going to make it.
No.
But that's for another talk. But it's labor, and it's crop insurance. These farmers, they can't control the weather, and they can't control the price, and they got to be able to make a profit to make it to the next year. Plus, if they can't make a profit, we talked earlier, we're going to lose our farms because the young kids that we're going to inherit that farm, they're going to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not working like my parents and not be able to make profit. So we've got to really look out for the farmers.
You know, you just came from Maxwell Air Force Base. You spoke to the military officers. How many were out there?
1,500, and they're.
You didn't know you were going to do that, did you?
Well, I knew I was going to speak to a few. I didn't know 1,500. But there was. You know, they bring captains in for so many, and they teach them the plan.
Are these all American soldiers?
No, I think there's about 20% from other countries. There's some from Ukraine, all over Europe. They come in, they pay their own way, and their countries, and they train them in our principles, in our playbook, which is good. But we do a great job of training, and so, but you have captains that are there for so long, but the majors are the ones that are there for about 10, 12 months. And they come in, bring their families, they go to schools, they train here. Maxwell is so important to our country. So that tells you how important it is to Montgomery. And so, man, they move these bases around. So we got to make sure that we do our due diligence here to make sure Maxwell stays here.
I know you know that, but unless you tour the state and serve, I'm sure you know this from having been our senior senator for 2.5 years, how important defense is to this state. I mean, if you took Redstone Arsenal, Maxwell Gunner, Fort Rucker, and Anniston out of the picture, I tell you what hit home with me. One day I had Mayor Todd Strange was mayor of Montgomery. He was sitting right there where you are, and there was a downturn in the economy. And I said to him, because of state employees losing their jobs, I said, Todd, I bet that state employee reductions hurt your city's government's taxes because that's y'all's biggest employer. I'd grown up in this area, so I figured state government was the biggest employer in Montgomery. He said, Steve, that's bad, but it's not our biggest employer. I said, oh, is Honda bigger than that now? He says, no, it's Maxwell Gunner. Maxwell Gunner is the biggest economic factor in this entire region. Can you imagine how important Redstone Arsenal is to Huntsville?
Oof. Well, they got 40,000 just Army. behind Redstone Arsenal, the fence up there. That's not counting the FBI now and
Oh, I
missile
know.
defense and should be Space Command, and that's for another story. And we're still fighting for that. You know, Mike Rogers has got a lot of power in the House.
Yeah.
And it's a shame now. If I will say this real quickly about Space Command, if Colorado would have been the best place, because we have got to defend this country
Right.
and our allies, because it's the most dangerous world you and I have ever lived in. Because we could strike a match somewhere and this thing could take off.
Right.
But Space Command is huge, but we want it in the best place. Huntsville was by far the best pick for it. Even the Secretary of the Air Force said it's got to go to Huntsville. And Joe Biden got in politics and sent it to Colorado over Nebraska. San Antonio was third, and sent it to the fourth best. Now, you don't do that if you're trying to look for perfection.
Well, it's obvious why he did it. I mean, Alabama, Texas, and Nebraska are red states. I mean, he just said, look, Colorado's a blue state. It's politics. I'm running for president.
And somebody said it was because of our abortion policy. Let me tell you something. If Joe Biden and the Democrats start pushing abortion policy as one of their rules for a base in their state, I mean, we're going to have to pack up most of our bases around the country and move them, because most of our bases are in red states.
They
They do a great job, and we're obviously one of them. But it is huge for our economy, and I hate the Space Command, but we're not going to give up on that, because we're going to have a new president here in a little over a year, and hopefully we can make some adjustments.
But we only got about 40, 50 seconds left. When you talk to those folks out there, they didn't think bad of you holding up those generals and all, did they?
No.
Did it come up at all?
Well, I brought it up as I was talking to 1,500 of them. I got a pretty good response when I said, you know, that Pentagon's probably a little bit too big as it is. You know, we need war fighters.
We
You know,
sure
we
do.
need people not behind desk and giving orders. We need people with a gun in their hand or being able to shoot a missile or whatever. Again, Steve, we live in a dangerous world, and this administration keeps pushing this Ukraine war. I mean, that old boy over there named Vladimir Putin, I mean, we know the experience he's got. He don't like us anyway.
No.
And so they're the only country, and I've learned this being in D.C. on the Armed Services Committee, where they're the only country that can destroy us in 45 minutes. We can't stop them. They got that many nuclear weapons.
We can't stop Russia.
We can't stop them. I mean, they've got more weapons than we got. They got more weapons than us and China combined. That's how they've survived. They're pretty smart now. They put all them weapons in the ground, and then they took Ukraine's when. That's not going to happen. But what I'm saying is, you know, their economy is the same size as California's, Russia's.
Yeah.
So it's really not a match if we do it the right way here. I'm just concerned that we're doing the same thing to our military that we've done to our FBI and our DOJ. We don't need to turn it into a political nightmare.
I agree with you. Well, Coach, our time's up. Our guest tonight, folks, has been our senior senator, Tommy Tuberville, who's referred to as coach in Alabama and in Washington. We thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule. He's on recess during his August recess, been on a forum tour around the state, and we appreciate him standing up for Alabama. And we thank you, viewers, for watching. Hope you tune again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.